Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the greatest show on earth. It's the Take Your Shot podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gitman, and we are just rolling through things here on this fantastic Friday as the Boston Celtics take care of business in game one at home, wire to wire victory in dominant fashion, defeating the Dallas Mavericks 107 to 89 as they take a 1-0 lead in this NBA Finals and are 3 wins away from banner number 18 being hanged up in TD Garden. It was Boston's game, as I mentioned, from wire to wire, from start to finish. This was all about the Celtics. The Mavericks were stagnant on offense, and Boston played their game to absolute perfection. A balanced attack by the Boston Celtics got them this game one victory. So let's talk about it. Early on, Boston was doing what they do normally. They shot threes, they hit threes. That's the Celtics game. They hit 7 threes in the first period, and they were taking advantage of the open looks that the Dallas Mavericks gave them quite early. It was Jaylen Brown hit a three. Derek White got 2 threes in the first quarter to open up the lead for the Boston Celtics. It was just that kind of game for Boston early where they were playing their game and hitting threes. And when the Boston Celtics hit threes, it's very, very hard to stop them, which is why this team is so dangerous because they have a balanced attack offensively. They can attack to the basket, but they do rely a lot on that 3-point shot, and they shoot the ball very well 1 through 5 on the court. And it was beautiful for them getting the 3-point shot going early after they had 9 days off before this NBA Finals series. But of course, what was most impactful for the Boston Celtics all game long was the play of Kristaps Porzingis, the return of Kristaps Porzingis. What I liked about it was that Joe Mazzulla brought KP off the bench, which I thought was a great move by Joe Mazzulla. I didn't think he was going to do that, but I think it's a beneficial move because, of course, you're so used to the starting lineup because Kristaps Porzingis before game one in the NBA Finals didn't play for 38 days. So Boston's now used to this lineup of Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, and Al Horford. So Boston decided to keep that lineup to start. It wasn't really working that well. Honestly, it was mostly a tied game to start. And then when Porzingis came off the bench, Porzingis made an impact, and it was clear. And he was by far the most impactful player in this game one of the NBA Finals. Right when he came off the bench, he was playing his game. This was his game. The pace was based off his game. It was all Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis really was the X factor going into this game, and he looks to be the X factor in this series because we were questioning going in: is Porzingis 100% healthy? Is Porzingis going to be as impactful as we saw him with the Celtics all season long? Because when we saw Porzingis with the Celtics all season long, we're like, Porzingis is opening up the floor for Boston. He's giving Boston and another shooter, another big man shooter, a better version of Al Horford. And no offense to Al Horford, but again, he's 38 years old. He's a better, younger version of Al Horford. He stretches the floor. He sets great pick and rolls. He hits contested jump shots. And even if somebody goes out to contest him on the 3-point line, it doesn't matter because he's 7'3" and he can still get shots over defenders and he hits them efficiently. And that's exactly what he did in this game. Getting the ball, hitting contested jump shots, giving Boston the momentum, and opening up this game for the Celtics, getting the lead from 5 to almost 17 to end the first quarter, and of course to 29 points in the halfway through to the second quarter. It was just overall a Kristaps Porzingis kind of a game. He really got Boston going a little bit and gave the crowd life, gave the Boston Celtics a lot of momentum, and it just gave them that big cushion. And when you're up 29 points, of course, we saw what Dallas did, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But when you're up 29 points, I mean, it's hard to come back. And Kristaps Porzingis was the difference in this series. And my pick was based off whether Kristaps Porzingis was going to be healthy or not. He was the factor in the series because he opens up so much for the Boston Celtics. Because for how good Boston played in the postseason, even without Porzingis, getting their job done, winning every game but one since Porzingis was out, the game two against Cleveland, of course. It was close games for the most part, other than maybe a couple games in that Cleveland series. The whole Pacers series was close. The whole series Indiana got opportunities to win basketball games. And it was a scary time for the Celtics because that series could have went the other direction and the Pacers could have been up 3-1 if they take care of their business, but they didn't. And of course, Boston's where they are now. But if Porzingis was in the Pacers series, there would have been a way more of a more comfortability factor for the Boston Celtics down the stretch because he defends the rim. He's a big ring presence, and people do not want to go attack the rim against Kristaps Porzingis. And what did the Pacers do to the Boston Celtics? They got to the rim easily. They drew fouls. Well, when a 7'3" Kristaps Porzingis is in the rim, it's much harder to score there. It's much harder to draw fouls, and you're more inclined to rely on the three-point shot. And that is what Dallas did in this game. When Kristaps Porzingis was at the rim, Dallas, when they don't shoot the threes that well, they attack the rim. They attack the rim. But in this scenario where Porzingis is at the rim, they're not getting anything from the rim. So they're going to have to keep on shooting three-point shots. And that's what Dallas did. And they weren't hitting the three-point shots again. They continually shot them and they continually missed. And it just separated the distance between Boston and Dallas early in that first half. And what I liked about Boston was this wasn't a game where Tatum took over. This wasn't a game where Jaylen Brown took over, even though he had a great third quarter. This was a balanced attack by the Boston Celtics. Yes, Porzingis had a great game, but overall, nobody really stood out for Boston. It was a balanced attack. And I'll give you a stat here that I saw at the end of the NBA Finals on the broadcast. This is the first time in NBA Finals history where 7 players on the same team hit multiple threes. Boston hit 16 threes, but 7 of the guys hit at least 2 of them. It was a very balanced attack all game long for the Celtics from perimeter on the interior. Boston played their game and they showed themselves early. What did I say last episode? Boston needed to come out, make a statement, show that they were the more experienced basketball team. And that is exactly what they did behind the efforts of Kristaps Porzingis and behind the efforts of the entire Boston Celtics balanced attack. And that is how good the Celtics are. We know their ability and we know what they can do at their pinnacle. And that is exactly, as I said, what they showed in this game 1. And I'm going to say it again. Porzingis, he to me is the factor of who is going to win the NBA Finals. If Porzingis plays great, the Boston Celtics are going to win this NBA title. If Porzingis doesn't play great, shows a little bit of his injury problems, then I think the Dallas Mavericks will win the NBA Finals. But from what I saw in Game 1, Porzingis making an impact immediately. It was clear. It was clear who was impacting the game the most, especially in that first half. I know Porzingis slowed down a little bit in the second half, but it was pretty clear who set the tone for the Boston Celtics, and that was Kristaps Porzingis. Huge game from him. Huge game from the rest of the Boston Celtics, even though with the balanced attack, Jason Tatum didn't have his game. Jason Tatum averaged 25 points this postseason. Jason Tatum only had 16 points in this game. And if I'm not mistaken, I think six of his points were scored in garbage time. So it was actually Tatum struggling for most of the game. He didn't shoot the ball that well. And the fact that Boston still won this basketball game while Tatum wasn't playing that well is something that Dallas should be concerned about because Tatum is going to play better in this series. 100% guaranteed. Tatum will play better. This was probably his one of his worst games probably he's going to play in this series, which is why if you're Dallas, you should be worried. Because I thought the only way that the Boston Celtics would win this series is if Jason Tatum shines. Jason Tatum is the best player. Jason Tatum becomes the NBA Finals MVP. That is how I thought the Boston Celtics would win this series, but it was a balanced attack. I was completely shocked and I was completely wrong. It was from the efforts of guys in each quarter. As I mentioned, Porzingis in the second and first quarter, Jaylen Brown in the second half. It was a balanced attack by the Celtics, and that is what's scary about them. They have probably, as I mentioned, maybe not the best player in the series. Maybe they don't have necessarily as good as superstars as the Dallas Mavericks have. But when you look at 5 through 7, ranking the best players in the series, even maybe 5 through 8, the Boston Celtics may have the 4 next best players. That is how good, that is how dominant, and that is how deep and loaded that this Boston Celtics roster actually is. And what I loved about it was that even though it was scary at one point, as I mentioned, Dallas cut the lead to 8 after Boston had the 29-point lead. And even I was tweeting, if you saw my Twitter, that, here comes the Dallas Mavericks. Boston's getting stagnant from 3 a little bit. Boston's not shooting the ball well from the 3-point line. What they did in the second half to adjust from that, attack at the rim, attack Jaylen Brown to the basket, to the rim, get some fouls, stop the clock, slow the game down, stop some of the momentum that Dallas has a little bit. And they really got their groove going, and then it got them from 3. What I like about it is with some teams, when they're not shooting well from the 3-point line, if I was them, I would go to the basket. I would get some shots going from the inside, work your way back to the 3-point line, then eventually your 3-point shot gets going a little bit. That's what I said with Karl-Anthony Towns in the Timberwolves Mavs series in the conference finals. Karl-Anthony Towns needs to attack the rim so he can get opportunities to hit some of those easy ones, and it'll give him more confidence to shoot the 3-point line. And that is what Boston did when they got a little bit stagnant from there, which we've seen at times this season, which is a big concern for the Celtics, getting stagnant from the 3-point line. Even though I didn't like the fact that they gave up a 20-point lead, and I did not like overall their entire second half, and it gives me a little less confidence about Boston actually taking both games at home. Even though they had a great performance overall, there was that one stretch where they were outscored by 21 points in a matter of 8 minutes, 2 minutes to end the first half, and then the next 6 minutes to start the second half, the third quarter. That was all Dallas. Outscored by 21 points in 8 minutes, which is a concern. But they did recover. They did bounce back from that easily, and Boston got the job done. At the end of the day, that is all that matters. It is a game. They got the lead, and they controlled and kept the lead intact after they had a little bit of a scare. And what I really, really liked, again, another thing I really, really liked, because I really thought that this Boston performance was something that was absolutely necessary, something that needed to be done, was the fact that Boston put Drew Holiday on Kyrie Irving. And even though Drew Holiday, I thought, should have been put on Luka Doncic, he shut down Kyrie Irving. And we'll get to Kyrie Irving's performance when we talk about the Dallas Mavericks. Drew Holiday shut down Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, if I'm not mistaken, he only had 12 points, 6 of 19 from shooting, 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. Drew Holiday played great defense. He did what he was supposed to do. He didn't have the greatest game offensively, like he has done this year with Boston. Only had 12 points. Not that big of an impact there. But defensively, and to slow down Kyrie Irving, to only allow him to 12 points in the basketball game, you will take that every single time. Give credit to Drew Holiday, because Drew Holiday has been a huge, huge part and huge component into why the Boston Celtics have continued to be dominant on both sides, not only offensively, but defensively as well. Again, they only allowed this Dallas offense, a Dallas offense in which I think, has the 2 best scoring guard backcourt in NBA history. That's what I think. And the fact that the Celtics limited them to only 89 points, that's incredible. That is an incredible defensive performance. They didn't even play that great on offense. As I mentioned, they were stagnant on offense in the second half. But the defense from wire to wire, limiting Dallas, especially Kyrie Irving, someone who we thought was going to make a huge impact to start the game early. And I thought it was important for Kyrie Irving to make a big impact to start this game early, because Kyrie Irving for the Dallas Mavericks was somebody that only one who actually had experience for the Dallas Mavericks. And yet, Drew Holiday shut him down. I didn't like the fact that Jaylen Brown was guarding Luka Doncic. I didn't think that worked out too well, because Luka, if I'm not mistaken, he had 30 points in this game, really was the big reason why Boston cut that lead from 29 to 8. I thought personally they should have put Derek White, but I understand the thinking from Joe Mazzulla because of the size difference. Of course, Jaylen Brown is a little bit taller than Derek White. Luka Doncic is 6'7". Derek White 6'4", 6'5", if I'm not mistaken. It makes sense, but at the end of the day, Derek White is a better defender than Jaylen Brown, and I thought they should have done that. But the defense from Drew Holiday was something that should not be forgotten in Game 1, and something that should not be looked away upon. for the big reasons why the Boston Celtics won this game, because they gave Dallas opportunities. They gave Dallas opportunities elsewhere, but they shut down the two superstars who know when it mattered, when they know those are the only two that can take the Dallas Mavericks to the promised land. So good job, Boston. They got their business done in game one. Now they need to do something that they haven't done, which is the terrible curse of the terrible twos. Win game two and protect home court. They did it against Indiana, but the other two series, not so much. So we're going to see how Boston continues their dominance in game two. Now let's talk about the losing side here in the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks all game were limited offensively based off the efforts of course, as I mentioned, Boston's defense. But Kyrie Irving, as I mentioned, huge part into why the Dallas Mavericks lost this game. He struggled mightily. And again, someone who you're expecting to set the tone and set the pace for this Dallas Mavericks team. Kyrie Irving's the only one with championship experience for the Mavericks. He's the only one, and if I'm not mistaken, with championship experience in this entire series, maybe with the exception of a bench warmer or two. I'm not even sure about that. I think Kyrie Irving is the only one who's won a ring in this series, and he needed to set the tone early. Boston, the crowd obviously was on him because we know all the controversy with Kyrie Irving in Boston. We know how that ended, him saying I'll resign, but he didn't, stepping on the court, all that stuff that he did. He was getting it. He was getting it from the crowd. And Kyrie Irving, I thought, needed to make a statement, shut down the Boston crowd, and he just didn't have a good game. And this is something that is not going to work for Dallas. They need Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic to both play great games consistently in order for Dallas to win this series and upset the Boston Celtics. Those are the two that have been carrying the Dallas Mavericks all playoffs long. Maybe they get away with it in a series like the Oklahoma City Thunder, no offense to them, but in a series like the Boston Celtics, where you need your A game, Kyrie needs to be at his A game. And I thought he actually got some decent looks. He got some wide open shots. He got to his normal looks, and he just wasn't hitting them. And I think if he would have hit them, especially in that run where Dallas pushed it from, of course, being down 29-8, they could have pushed it even further. I think, quite frankly, they could have tied the game, got even more momentum, and put more pressure on the Boston Celtics to execute and perform. But at the end of the day, Kyrie Irving didn't play great. That's the number one reason why they lost. That's the number one reason which cost them. And in order for Dallas to win the series, there's no questions asked. I think everyone can agree with this. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic both have to be great at the same time. It is a necessity because we've seen Boston offensively. We've even seen Boston defensively. This is something that is a necessity. And yes, as I mentioned, give credit to Jrue Holiday, but at the end of the day, this is Kyrie Irving. This is Uncle Drew. We've seen what he has done before, and he needs to play better. Also for the Dallas Mavericks, they did get open looks, though. They did get open looks. That's something that I saw from Dallas. They were getting the shots. It wasn't like Dallas was absolutely not getting the looks that they were normally getting. PJ Washington, Derek Jones had some looks from the three-point line. They didn't hit them. Overall, Dallas was terrible from the three-point line, 7 of 27. If I'm not mistaken, they only hit 2 threes to go into the halftime compared to Boston's 10 threes, and that's already a 24-point difference right there, which is pretty much the deficit at halftime. So you're pretty much at a disadvantage there. Dallas wasn't hitting the threes that they were normally hitting. And of course, in a series, you're going to need a role player to step up. And nobody really stepped up to help the Dallas Mavericks in a significant way. P.S. PJ Washington got it going a little bit during the run, of course, but for a majority of the game, especially when Boston got that lead early and when Boston got that lead late, PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr. didn't really show up in this game. Derek Jones Jr., 5 points, that's unacceptable. As a fourth best player, that is unacceptable. We expect more from Derek Jones Jr. Right? Yes, Jaden Hardy had 13 points here in this game, but that was mostly during garbage time. Nobody other than Doncic really stepped up and really performed for the Dallas Mavericks in this game, and that's a concern. That is a concern because, again, one of my keys for this series, some role player, I don't know who, it could be a Tim Hardaway Jr., who Jason Kidd actually tried to play a little bit in the second half, didn't really do anything, really wasn't that effective for the Dallas Mavericks. Which role player is going to step up? Could it be Jaden Hardy actually in more minutes in the game when it actually matters? Could it be Josh Green? None of the Dallas Mavericks role players were stepping up, and they're going to need somebody in order for them to win this basketball series. And what else I didn't like about Dallas, of course, was the fact that they only had, what was it, 7 assists, 9 assists? I think it was actually, yeah, 9 assists. That was the total at the end of the game. The Dallas Mavericks only had 9 assists in this basketball contest. That's something that you can't happen. That just can't happen. And remember, Luka Doncic averages 9.6 assists per game in this postseason. They got less than his average assist total per game, just an individual player. Dallas was stagnant on offense. They were relying on the ISO ball a lot, especially with Kyrie Irving. Doncic didn't even get off to a fast start, which is something that is important for either Doncic or Kyrie to get off to a fast start. And of course, we saw what happened when one of them didn't. Doncic, of course, picked it up during the run when they tried to make the comeback, but they did not get off to a fast start. It was isolation ball. It was stagnant offense. Doncic only had 6 opportunities to get assists. He only got 1 assist the entire game. When you're looking at Luka Doncic getting 1 assist, that's basically an automatic loss. There is no way the Dallas Mavericks are winning a game with Luka Doncic getting 1 assist. And it was because Boston's recovery time. Dallas not hitting shots. It was a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, when Luka sets up guys for wide open shots, gotta hit them. Gotta hit them. And there was more opportunities for Luka to pass, of course. But when Luka gives Dallas's players, the role guys, wide open shots, they're gonna have to hit them in order to win the series. It's that simple. We've seen it in past playoff series. We've seen what the Dallas Mavericks are capable of doing. And the fact that they just didn't show up was a surprise to me because I didn't think this was going to be a blowout. I thought this was going to be a much tighter and a more competitive basketball game, and it looked like it could have been. It definitely looked like it for a little bit, but at the end of the day, Dallas just didn't play good. It was one game, of course. They have time to make adjustments for game 2. They have time to adjust, and we'll talk about what Dallas needs to do in order to adjust for game 2 in a little bit. But I did like what I saw from Dallas in the second half, though, especially when they made that run, because it gave me a lot of hope. They won the second half. The Mavericks actually won the second half. They played great in the second half. It was just that avalanche in the first quarter by Kristaps Porzingis that they couldn't really stop, and I don't blame them because when you got Derek Lively, when you've got Daniel Gafford out there, it's really difficult because those two are paint guarders. Those guys do not stretch the floor. So we'll talk about an adjustment that Dallas needs to make there, but it's difficult asking guys who don't guard the perimeter and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford to go out there and contest Kristaps Porzingis' shots. That is not an easy task, but they did show a lot of life. Luka Doncic got it going a little bit, and considering the fact that they had an opportunity to come back and they had an opportunity to make chaos happen in game 1 in the NBA Finals, even with Kyrie Irving struggles, Dallas will come out better. Trust me. This was the first game for a lot of players for Dallas in the NBA Finals. Didn't show up, a little bit nerves on the road. Dallas will show up in game 2, and we will see how they respond. But I want to get to breaking news in the NBA, which is something that I didn't expect. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story with my podcast because yesterday, what day did we do this? Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. I was like, I want to do the JJ Redick thing. I want to talk about JJ Redick to the Lakers because Shams made that report, of course, that JJ Redick was most likely going to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. It was pretty much set in stone, according to most people, especially Shams. He was emphasizing that this was set in stone. And I was holding it off for the NBA Finals, but I'm like, okay, now this report came out that Shams said this is pretty much a done deal. Now we're going to talk about it. And then we talk about, then of course, next day after I talk about it, Dan Hurley now is in conversation to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. So now we've got to talk about Dan Hurley because for those of you who don't know, because this is an NBA podcast, this is not about college basketball, Dan Hurley has coached a lot of teams. He coached Wagner, he coached Rhode Island, but he, since 2018, was the head coach of the UConn Huskies. And for the first time since 2006, 2007, when Billy Donovan led the Gators to back-to-back national titles, UConn in 2023-2024 won back-to-back national championships under Dan Hurley. And Dan Hurley really pretty much revived that UConn program because they were terrible for a little bit. They weren't playing that great. They weren't where they were supposed to be. UConn is a blue blood. UConn is a program that most people in college basketball expect to be in the national championship conversation every year. And Dan Hurley, with his offensive schemes, with his demeanor, with his development program installed, with his recruiting, he revived that program, just like Billy Donovan, who's now the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, former head coach of the Thunder, revived Florida. Dan Hurley is pretty much the biggest name as a coach in college basketball, if not the entire world in basketball. And now, because he won back-to-back championships, because of his capability, the Los Angeles Lakers are, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, very interested in Dan Hurley. And in fact, they are meeting at this moment, Dan Hurley and the Los Angeles Lakers, to talk about a contract to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And this is something that I did not see coming. This is something that I don't think a lot of people expected. But when you actually think about it, when you look deep down and think about what this move actually is, it's a great move. I think this would be a great move. And I don't think Dan Hurley is going to deny this job, especially if the Lakers give him a decent and lucrative contract offer, a enhancing contract offer. Dan Hurley is going to accept this. There are 3 jobs in the NBA where you're the head coach of that team. This is something that I'm interested in. There are 3 programs: the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, and the Los Angeles Lakers. And if somebody offers you one of those jobs as a college coach, you just get up and take it. And I would be shocked if Dan Hurley does not take this. Even though UConn has the opportunity to win 3 titles in a row, which is something that no program in college basketball has done since John Wooden in the 70s with UCLA, Bill Walton and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, of course. Rest in peace, Bill Walton. This is something that not a lot of college programs have done. So Dan Hurley could do that, or he could take this Lakers job. But I think personally he would take this Lakers job, and I think this would be a great move for the Los Angeles Lakers. This is a high-risk, high-reward move because there's been some college coaches, actually, quite in fact, most college coaches who haven't worked in the NBA. Rick Pitino tried it with the Boston Celtics and the Knicks. Didn't work out there. John Calipari with the New Jersey Nets. Didn't work out there. John Beilein, great Michigan coach with the Cleveland Cavaliers, pretty much got fired after half a season. But Billy Donovan, even though he's been in the NBA, sustained for a lot of years, he hasn't done a lot of winning. I mean, he made it to the conference finals with OKC in 2016, should have made the NBA finals and had the opportunity to win the title. Didn't win anything. There hasn't been really a college coach who transitioned to the NBA and actually won an NBA championship. There really hasn't been. So this is a high-risk, high-reward move for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I actually think I love it. Dan Hurley's offensive schemes are something that is great. Even LeBron James went out to praise Dan Hurley, and we will talk about LeBron's impact here in a couple of minutes, but LeBron even praised Dan Hurley, saying his X and O's are absolutely incredible. So this might be a good move for the Lakers. I think the goal of the Lakers trying to get Dan Hurley is his development. He has developed UConn's program, UConn's players to where they are today, back-to-back national champions. And I think that's what the Lakers want out of him. That's what I think the Lakers look out of him. The Lakers want him to develop guys like Austin Reeves, develop guys like Rui Hachimura, and develop guys like a Max Christie, for example. Squeeze a little more out of them because remember, the Lakers aren't far off. Yes, they're not necessarily contenders yet, but they're not far off away because remember, in that Denver series, they had lots of opportunities to win. In 3 minutes, 11-point differential in that series in the Lakers' losses could have made the difference between a Lakers going to the second round and the Lakers going home in 5. That is how big of a importance the last 3 minutes is. And the Lakers' intentions, I think, are trying to just squeeze out a little bit more from the young guys, develop them a little bit more, work them around his offense and offensive schemes. And that's what the Lakers want. And I think it's honestly a good strategy because, yes, I love JJ Redick. James Borrego did decent in Charlotte, but there is no really proven head coach out there right now in the market. The only proven head coach is you got to go to college, and that is Dan Hurley. And I think this job would actually work for Dan Hurley. I think he would be great in the development of Anthony Davis, even though Anthony Davis prefers James Borrego because James Borrego, of course, was his assistant coach in New Orleans previously. I still think this would be a great move overall for the Lakers, not only for the short term for the Lakers championship hopes now with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but their long-term hopes with developing the young guys, building around Anthony Davis, I think personally this is a great move for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now let's talk about LeBron James' perspective on this move, because LeBron James, let's just say, in my opinion, he wants JJ Redick. They do the podcast together. They do it for a reason. And another reason why, with this whole Wojnarowski and Shams controversy on this particular topic, of course, if you didn't know, Shams reported the other day that JJ Redick will most likely be the head coach. Then yesterday, Wojnarowski goes, not so fast, and says UConn's Dan Hurley is expected to have a lucrative contract offer with the Lakers. Well, Wojnarowski is getting these messages from the Los Angeles Lakers directly. Shams Charania is getting these messages from Clutch Sports because Shams' agent is Rich Paul. Shams works with Clutch Sports. And who is the centerpiece of the Clutch Sports agency? LeBron James. Clearly, Clutch Sports wanted to send a message to the basketball world, wanted to send a message to the Los Angeles Lakers that they wanted JJ Redick to be the head coach. It's pretty clear and obvious. There's a reason why LeBron's so happy doing the podcast with JJ Redick. They are connecting. They are having fun. I just watched it the other day. They know what they're talking about, and they work perfectly together with the schemes and stuff. And I think JJ Redick is somebody that LeBron's intrigued with. And now, what does LeBron do? Does LeBron explore the options of leaving? Because remember, he has the player option, expected to go into free agency, looking for a new contract with the Lakers. Could LeBron James leave? Yes, he's praised Dan Hurley in the past, but clearly LeBron James and Clutch Sports want JJ Redick. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what LeBron James says. That he's not involved in this coaching search. That is bull crap. LeBron James is involved, whether that's in a direct way or in an indirect way, like Clutch Sports is doing with Shams Charania. This is a LeBron impactful decision. I know LeBron says he doesn't care. Well, guess what? He cares clearly, because Clutch Sports is sending out a message to Shams. They are sending out a message to the world that they want JJ Redick. So what are the Lakers going to do? What if they hire Dan Hurley? Yes, Dan Hurley may be somebody that could develop Bronny James. It very well may be. But LeBron wants JJ Redick. And now things could get interesting. Now that draft becomes a little bit more interesting. The second round on the 27th of this month could get even more intriguing. Let's say Bronny James gets drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers for some reason. Remember, what if Philly takes a shot on him? Philly has the cap room to sign LeBron James. So why wouldn't LeBron be intrigued of the idea? Hey, Bronny's in Philly. Philly's looks like they can be a contender with me on the roster with Embiid and Maxey when healthy. Why not sign there? They've got the room to sign me. Why not go to Philadelphia? This Lakers team is not necessarily something I want to be a part of. I'm not necessarily happy that they picked Hurley over Redick. This could become a storyline, folks. This really could. I think LeBron wants JJ Redick. It's really the truth. And LeBron James may leave. He very well may leave if Dan Hurley gets hired. I know what he said. Again, I understand all that. He said it while replying to JJ Redick interviewing Dan Hurley. But this man has a connection with JJ Redick. This man likes what JJ Redick's doing. He wants JJ Redick. He doesn't want Dan Hurley. He doesn't want this developmental phase. He doesn't want to develop for the long term. He wants to win short term. He doesn't want the Lakers' focus to be on the long term. He wants to win in the short term, and he has to figure out that best opportunity. And I understand that the Los Angeles Lakers are looking at the long term. I absolutely understand it. I'm not mad at the Lakers. I think that they have absolutely every right to look at the long term along with the short term, because this is a Lakers team, especially if they do keep LeBron James. LeBron only has a certain amount of years left. LeBron only has maybe 2 years, maybe 3 if he stretches it out a little bit. He doesn't have a lot of time left with the Los Angeles Lakers. So the Lakers have to be looking at this with a long-term perspective, building around Anthony Davis, maybe getting another star, developing the young guys, drafting correctly. That is understandable if you're the Los Angeles Lakers. So LeBron, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he's going to think. But in my opinion, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, LeBron likes JJ Redick. He prefers JJ Redick. I don't care what the media says that LeBron said. I don't care that LeBron said, "Oh, I'm not involved." He's involved, folks. It's pretty clear and pretty obvious, and it's right in front of us. LeBron wants JJ Redick, and if they hire Dan Hurley, this could become very interesting very quickly for LeBron James and his future with the Los Angeles Lakers. But let's go away from the Dan Hurley topic now. Let's go back to game 2 for the NBA Finals. Let's talk about adjustments needed to be made for game 2 of the NBA Finals. And I'm going to tell you, what does Dallas need to do in order to win game 2? What adjustments do the Mavericks need to make in game 2 of the NBA Finals? Number one, the number one and most important adjustment in this particular series is to get Kyrie Irving going. Because when you are in a series and you're relying on a PJ Washington, when you're relying on a Derrick Jones Jr. to shoot threes and hit threes, limiting Kyrie Irving, Boston's going to win the series. You cannot rely on PJ Washington and Derrick Jones to make up the performance and make up the efficiency of Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving needs to ball out. I said it, and I will say it again. Kyrie Irving is crucial for the Mavericks to win this NBA title. Kyrie needs to be the guy that we saw against the Timberwolves. He needs to be the guy along with Luka Doncic in order for them to win the series. Because if they play the way that they played against Minnesota, they absolutely have a shot to win the series because we've seen what they're capable of doing. 3 weeks ago, after they beat the Thunder, I would have said no shot they could have beaten the Boston Celtics. But they do have a chance. They do have a shot because we've seen them at their full ability. We've seen them with Kyrie Irving and Doncic playing at their absolute best. Kyrie doesn't necessarily have to have great quarters, but stretches, especially when Doncic is out and Doncic is a little bit tired, wants a little bit of a rest while he's playing. Kyrie Irving needs to go. Kyrie Irving needs to attack. It's absolutely a necessity. It has to happen. That is the number one adjustment because you cannot rely on PJ Washington and Derrick Jones to make up the efficiency of Kyrie Irving, and that is what Dallas tried to do yesterday, and it clearly didn't work. I don't care if Drew Holiday's on Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's going to have to ball. He's going to have to ball out, and he's going to have to perform. I get it. Drew Holiday's a great defender, and I said that Boston probably has two of the best possible defenders that you can put on Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. Drew Holiday probably being number one on that list in the entire NBA. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, this is the NBA Finals. Your team needs you to perform. Your team needs you to execute. You are going to have to ball out and find ways to win basketball games. It's pretty clear and it's pretty simple. And Kyrie Irving is the key to all of that. Kyrie Irving is the key. He may not win Finals MVP. Of course, Luka Doncic will be the one to get the flowers at the end of this series. But Kyrie Irving is so important to what Dallas does because their offense scoring 89 points in a series against Boston, unacceptable. You cannot have that in order to win any games. I promise you, Boston's offense is so good, even if they have bad shooting nights, they're scoring more than 89 points. 89 points? Really? Dallas is going to have to figure that out. Number one, that's my number one goal. Number two adjustment, Luka Doncic. Yes, he played great. He had 30 points. I get all of that. I get it. Luka Doncic was really the only one who did anything for the Dallas Mavericks in this particular basketball game. But he needs to get off to a faster start. Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving have gone off to fast starts, either one or the other, and it's gotten Dallas going a little bit. Yes, I know Luka's trying to conserve energy. Luka's trying to give Dallas energy more at the end of the game when it matters, and it did work for a little bit. End of the second, of course, start of the third period. We know what happened. I said it probably 1,000 times. The run, 29-8 points. Yes, Luka Doncic played great at that stretch. But you can't start the game going down 17 in the first quarter. That was the biggest first quarter deficit in game one of an NBA Finals ever. The biggest first quarter deficit in an NBA Finals ever. That just can't happen. Dallas needs to get off to a faster start. They need to control. They need to slow down the Boston Avalanche. They need to either control or slow it down or match the Boston Avalanche because they have an avalanche themselves with Luka Doncic. So that's number two. Luka Doncic needs to get off to faster starts. And number three, they need to move the ball more. 9 assists, unacceptable. You cannot have 9 assists. Luka Doncic cannot have 1 assist the entire game. Dallas needs to try to get Luka Doncic to drive, to attack the basket, to maybe collapse defenders because he really didn't particularly get to the basket a lot, except in the second half. But he was looking to score, not necessarily passing. But Doncic also needs to get to the basket and look to pass because, yes, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr. got open looks, but Doncic only had 6 opportunities to get assists, which is way below what he normally has. He usually has probably maybe 16 opportunities to get assists, but yet he only got 6. That you can't have that. You can't have this isolation ball all the time because at the end of the day, they're going to start doubling, triple teaming you. And if you keep on shooting the ball, you can't be stagnant. And when they do double team and triple team you, then you have the opportunity to pass it out. Yes, the guys need to hit the shots, but Dallas needs to get more opportunities with those wide open shots. And number 4, of course, playing Maxi Kleber more. Kristaps Porzingis is going to stretch the floor out. Al Horford is going to stretch the floor out. Yes, I love Derek Lively. Even though he got into foul trouble in this game, it wasn't a huge factor. I love Daniel Gafford as well. He's been playing just as good, if not better, than Derek Lively. But at the end of the day, this may not be those guys' series. This may be a Maxi Kleber series because Maxi Kleber is a big guy who can stretch the floor and play perimeter defense. He can guard those big guys. He may not be as tall as Lively and Gafford, but he is the guy who you probably feel more comfortable with stretching out the floor and guarding Porzingis, guarding Al Horford, and contesting out there because it's hard for Derek Lively to move his feet out there. Clearly, he got into foul trouble for a reason. Normally, he doesn't get into foul trouble, but he got stretched out on the floor, and especially when he does get stretched out on the floor because of Porzingis, and then Boston tries to do their pick and roll to get Jason Tatum, to get Jaylen Brown on Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford and get them to draw fouls, which has been working. I would feel more comfortable if I'm Dallas with Maxi Kleber guarding Porzingis out there, and even if they do set the pick and roll to get Tatum or to get Brown, with Kleber, I think Kleber is a better defender on the perimeter. Obviously not the interior, but the perimeter. And this may be his kind of a series, and it may be a necessity to play him more than Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. So maybe Jason Kidd needs to explore that option. Now let me go to my game 2 pick. I picked Boston in 6. I still am thinking that Dallas is going to come back and respond in this game 2. I haven't seen Boston protect home court except in that Pacers series when they really shouldn't have because they should have lost game 1. But that's another story for another day. But I think Dallas will come back stronger. I really liked what I saw from Dallas in the second half, and I think Kyrie Irving will play better, and I think he understands the assignment that if he does not play better, Dallas will not win the series, plain and simple. I think Kyrie gets that. I would bet whatever his point total is. I don't even care what Kyrie Irving's point total is. 23, 24, 25, over, all of them. Kyrie Irving is going to have a great game, and I expect it. I would be shocked. And if he doesn't, Drew Holiday may be the best perimeter defender of the decade. Sorry. It's either that, Kyrie Irving playing well, or it's Drew Holiday's the best perimeter defender in this decade. Those are my only 2 options. I just don't see Kyrie Irving having another bad performance, and they maybe not need to win game 2, but if they want to have a shot at winning the series, a decent shot at winning the series, they're going to need to tie the series because Boston is undefeated on the road in this postseason. It's going to be tough to beat Boston even 2 times in a row at home, and if you can split this 1-1, maybe even split it 1-1 in Dallas, get this to a 2-2 series, make it interesting because whenever it's 2-2, even if you're an underdog and even if you lose home court and you still don't have home court, it's a best-of-3 series. Well, anything can happen in a best-of-3 series. All you got to do is get one on the road. Anything can happen in a best-of-3 series. So Dallas needs to find a way to get this to 2-2, and if they can get this game 2 here in Boston, I think they will have a great chance of doing that, and I think Dallas also will hit some of their shots because Boston gave them open looks. Boston gave them opportunities to score, yet Dallas did not take advantage of it. So I expect Dallas to play a little bit better. I expect Boston to not shoot as great as they did from the three-point line. Maybe Jason Tatum has a better game, but I still don't think Boston is going to have that avalanche that they had to start the game, and I think Dallas is going to respond and win this game and make this an interesting series. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching the Take Your Shot podcast. Remember, please leave a like and subscribe on YouTube. It will mean a lot for me. Maybe at the end of the NBA Finals, we will be doing a special giveaway. If you leave a like, subscribe, and follow me on all social media platforms, that could be coming up soon. So Stay tuned for a potential giveaway with the Take Your Shot podcast. And again, that's all my shots for the day. Remember, tell me if you would have taken your shots on my takes. That's all my shots for the day, folks. Have a great weekend. Enjoy game 2 of the NBA Finals because trust me, I expect it to be much better than game 1. Let's see if we have any more crazy news going on in the league. And we've only got 6 more games left at most in the season, maybe 3 to 6 games left. So it's winding down short. Hopefully we get a better series than what it looked like game 1 was. And enjoy the NBA Finals. Again, enjoy the weekend, and we will see you on Monday, recapping game 2, telling you more adjustments for game 3, and maybe breaking some more NBA news.